Hello everyone, and welcome to today's joint webinar between Wowza and Osprey Video. And in today's session, we're going to cover how to create your own live TV streaming service with Osprey and Wowza. My name is Ryan Jesperson, and I'm a streaming media technologist, and also I'm in charge of business development in EMEA here in Europe. And in the session today, we're going to cover how to enable your own live TV streaming video service, how to configure the Osprey Talon hardware encoder. I have one of these right here in my office that we're going to go through, configure, and set up, and then connect to Wowza Streaming Cloud as an easy way to deliver this through our Wowza Streaming Cloud service. As an additional option, we're going to connect this to Wowza Streaming Engine, which is our media server software that you can deploy on premises or with a cloud vendor like Amazon, Google, or Azure, or you're in your own data center. And then we're going to actually scale that stream to a global audience using the Wowza CDN. So we're going to set up a CDN target inside of the Wowza Streaming Cloud service to easily push our stream out to the CDN. And finally, we're going to enable playback for OTT devices. With Wowza Streaming Cloud, we have a built-in player, but what we're going to do is actually use the Akamai URLs that we generate in the CDN and then pull that into a very well-known player, JW player, that I've enabled with Chromecast functionality. So then I would be able to actually pull up this content and play it back on an OTT device, enabling kind of that full encoding through to playback workflow that I need for a live streaming service. So what are the use cases for what we're talking about today for Osprey and Wowza? Well, of course, the primary one that we focused on today is for television and broadcast. So enabling IPTV and OTT over-the-top playback and TV everywhere playback. But this could very easily be used for lecture capture, for universities, for enterprises, for corporate webcasting. There's really a variety of different use cases that the Talon encoder can be used for. And regarding OTT, we have a variety of university enterprises, corporations, broadcast customers who use Wowza technology. So here are just a couple of examples. Companies like universities like Stanford, La Sexta here in Spain, that actually uses us for their OTT service. So this is technology that's used for a variety of services to enable that live streaming and video on demand streaming functionality. A few years ago, we started a program called the Works with Wowza program. And the idea here at Wowza was to create a seamless end-to-end solution with partners in the industry. And Osprey Video is one of those partners. We identified Osprey as a very well-known name for both capture cards that you can put inside of servers, as well as hardware devices like what we're working with today, the Osprey Talon. And what we've done is we've worked with our engineers to create a very tight integration to make it as simple as possible to connect all the different pieces you need to create an end-to-end solution. In the case of today's webinar, a end-to-end live streaming service. So this is true of also JW Player that we partner with, and we can enable playback and functionality like DVR, like live rewind and pause and playback, advanced transcoding, adaptive bitrate functionality. That's what we're doing in today's webinar, is pulling all these end-to-end pieces that is enabled by our Works with Wowza partner program. And this is a workflow we're going to be going through today. So, with a lot of course, tier one and large broadcast customers, they're pulling in live signals through satellite, capturing that through an IRD, and then they need a way to turn that into IP. So they use kind of a capture device. Now, for very large tier one broadcasters, they're using extremely large, expensive encoders. This could be a high vision encoder, an elemental encoder, and so on. But that workflow is prohibitively expensive for smaller TV stations, regional and local, university TV stations who don't have $20,000 to spend on an encoder. So with the Osprey Talon, it puts you at a price point where you can capture content, whether it be HD SDI or HDMI content, encode that to IP, communicate that over RTMP to Wowza, and then have Wowza stream that out. It creates, a great, easy workflow, an economical, affordable workflow to get all of the functionality or a lot of the functionality that a tier one or a large broadcaster can do, but enable that for your live TV streaming service. And once you pull that in from the Osprey encoder, you can now use Wowza Streaming Engine or Wowza Streaming Cloud to enable your delivery to all of these different devices that you need to really create a live TV streaming service. This could be TV playback, smart TVs, tablets, mobile devices, over-the-top devices like Chromecast and Roku and Apple TV and so on, as well as set-top boxes. These could be your own Android set-top boxes or ones that you're working with a particular service provider on. And also gaming consoles, Xbox, PlayStation. These are all devices that Wowza enables you to be able to deliver to. And to enable that functionality, you need to use some way to scale that. You can scale that using other Wowza Streaming Engine edge servers and create your own CDN, but that's also a workflow that can be expensive or complicated for a smaller regional channel that doesn't want the expense of having to maintain that and set that up. And that's where our Wowza Streaming Cloud CDN comes in. We can either enable the entire workflow with Wowza Streaming Cloud or use our own Wowza Streaming Engine server and push out to Wowza Streaming Cloud to scale to a CDN. And that's all those workflows are ones that we're going to cover in today's demo. And this is a slightly more in-depth guide as to exactly what we're going to do. So in today's demo, we're actually going to walk through step number 1 here, which is capturing a live event with a camera using the Osprey Video Talon encoder, and then pushing that into Wowza Streaming Cloud for delivery to the CDN out to end users. And I'm going to be sharing those URLs with you. And if you have a Chromecast device at home while you're watching right now or at your office, you'll be able to actually play that back using the JW Player integration that I'm doing. By the same token, we're going to do a demo using Wowza Streaming Engine. And we actually have a promotional bundle that we're doing between the Osprey Talon and Wowza Streaming Engine until the end of September. And this gives you up to 20% discount on purchasing a pack. And I'll talk about that later on. And that's through our distributors in each of our regions. And specifically here in EMEA, we work with Ambient Media. And we'll give you some information on how you can contact them to purchase this bundle. A lot of the features you can see here, it may be a little bit difficult to see, are the different components that you can enable with these different workflows. So with Wowza Streaming Engine, we can pull in the DVR functionality. With transcoder, we can do that with both Wowza Streaming Cloud and Wowza Streaming Engine. And what the transcoder enables you to do is pull in one high quality source, transcode that to multiple lower resolutions and bit rates, and then deliver adaptive bit rate to end users. And if you guys have ever used Netflix or any kind of video on demand or live streaming service, sometimes you'll see a change in quality while you're watching a live stream or a video on demand stream. And that's adaptive bitrate at work. And I'll show exactly how to enable that with both of these platforms and with a player to really allow you to build out a robust and very professional live TV streaming service. And the scaling and delivery part is really a key component to delivering this. Whether you're delivering only to local people in your area, or you're delivering only to students at your university TV station, or delivering to a regional, it's still important to have a scaling mechanism in place to scale that to that audience. Running your own Wowza Streaming Engine server, you can support, depending on the hardware and the network throughput in your data center, you can support up to almost 3,000 users at times with a very high network throughput. However, sometimes if it goes over that and you only have one server, it may create problems with that server in trying to keep up with the load that is there unless you have some kind of a scaling mechanism in place. So we're going to actually enable that, and that's the key component to really creating a robust live TV streaming service. And you can see here that we also have multi-protocol support. We can deliver to Dash, we can deliver to Apple HLS, and a variety of other protocols to really allow you to reach all the different devices that you need, and also enable closed captioning. Closed captioning is another key component that is legally required in many countries, and that's something that Wowza can enable too. This is a great guide, and this definitely is probably hard for you guys to see, but with delivering live TV streaming service, we can't have that conversation without talking about OTT devices. And you can see here, these are the most common ones that you're seeing on the market. Everything from Apple TV to Roku devices. Amazon.com has their own Amazon Fire devices for playback. The Google Nexus, the Google Chromecast, which is fast becoming the most predominant because of the price point that it's at and how easy it is to use. It also uses kind of a unique way of casting content from a mobile device, which enables enables kind of second screen experiences, enables you to use your iPhone or your mobile device to actually cast content and control content like it would a remote control. And I'll show that in today's demo. And of course, gaming consoles like the Xbox 360, the PS3, the Xbox One, and of course the PS4. And I know both Xbox and PlayStation are coming out with new devices that I think are hitting the market right before Christmas this year. What you'll notice about this is in this guide, this is a guide that was put out by Streaming Media Magazine. And if you search for streaming media, and I think it's like OTT devices, this chart gets updated regularly. And the cool thing about this is that it tells you the protocol support for each of these devices. So with some of these devices, it only supports, HLS, because it's an Apple protocol. With the Roku, it supports HLS, smooth streaming. With the Amazon console, it supports Dash. So all of these different protocols are supported across devices. So you need to have a streaming server that can support those particular devices. As a general rule, Apple HLS is still king when it comes to app with OTT devices. However, here in Europe, we're seeing a lot of Dash implementations and also HBB TV compliancy. So smart TVs that are following the HBB TV compliance standard, we have end customers that are developing HBB TV compliant solutions using Wowza technology. So it's important to do that when enabling a TV everywhere workflow. So this is exactly the conversation. What delivery protocol should you support? Well, the good news is that with Wowza, you can do all. Like you can support everything you want. With our Wowza Streaming Cloud service, we currently only support Apple HLS and Adobe HDS. However, Akamai has just certified us for MPEG-Dash as well. So our MPEG-Dash support in cloud should be coming very soon. But if you're running your own Wowza Streaming Engine instance, you can support all of these different protocols without any problem. And with Wowza Streaming Cloud, you can deliver RTMP directly as well. And this is what we're going to do with JW Player. We're going to actually enable all of this different functionality. We're going to be able to deliver video playback experiences for mobile and web browsers, native mobile apps for both Android and iOS, OTT platforms. In the case of today's demo, we're going to show Chromecast. And then when you're delivering a TV streaming service, you want to give different features that make you a professional TV streaming service, regardless of how small you are. With Wowza, the price point is the same. We don't charge you more for extra services. So with that, you can actually create preview thumbnails, with Wowza JW Player. You can create caption support. You can do audio and playlist support, multi-audio, in fact. You can do adaptive streaming end user experiences where the end user can switch between those different multi-bitrate options. You can even do AES encryption with Wowza and then decrypt that using the JW player. So this will allow security in your stream so people can't grab your secured stream. DVR seeking as well, so you can do a live stream if you're playing back a football game. You can live rewind and then come back to the live if you want to see a replay. That can be enabled with Wowza and with JW Player, and I'll show that in the demo today. And then we can support ID3 metadata, and this allows you to, with JW Player and with Wowza, enable live ad insertion. So if you want to actually add an ad insertion and add into your live TV streaming service, you can now do that as well. So all of this is available inside of this integration. And we're going to talk about specifically the casting model with how to cast with JW Player. And the great thing about this is it uses open standards like HTML5, Dial, Dash, and HLS. The video is a core focus of being able to cast. And we're going to do this with JW Player and be able to cast to a Chromecast that I have running here in my office. And how do we do that? I'm going to walk through the steps of how to do this, but you pretty much create an app on the website. You create like a sender application, and then you create a receiver application. And this is all done through the Google Chrome developer network. And then you use JW Player to actually enable that functionality with the player that you end up creating. So I'll cover that here in today's demo. And with that, I think I've talked enough through the slides. I'm a big fan of demos, so I'm going to jump right into a few demos in here. This is for more information on the Osprey video card itself or the hardware encoder. Here you can see kind of a graph or a diagram showing how the Talon works. There's some spec information here as well, talking about some of the functionality. One of the things I really love about the Osprey Talon is it has a couple of different modes. One of the modes it has is the idea of pulling in one source. And actually, I'll zoom in here so you can see this a little bit better. You can pull in one source and then send these different bit rates and these multi-bit rates to different destinations. And this is a great way to do monitoring on the device or send different feeds or different resolutions of the feeds to different devices. With Wowza, that does it for you. So it's a better use case to just encode to IP and send that directly to Wowza Streaming Engine or Wowza Streaming Cloud. But one thing that's very cool about the Osprey Talon encoder and what makes it extremely a good deal at the price point that it's at is it has this 2x2 mode. And this is what they call a lecture capture mode. And this is great for a university or a enterprise or corporation that's maybe doing lecturing and training and corporate training and things like that. You can use the HDSDI to pull in your camera feed and then encode that and send that to a streaming service like Wowza. But then you can choose between the HDMI and the CVBS feed and choose between those to send a second encoding to that streaming service as well. And this will enable you to do a kind of a picture-in-picture with Wowza, where you can have maybe a copy of your slides or your presentation and then a talking head. And that can all be done very easily. And I do have a question here. What is the price of the encoder itself? And I'll definitely share the information that we have here. And in fact, I think I have Richard Spellman from Ambient Media, who is our distributor here in Europe. And Richard, maybe you can actually give me a chat message and give me some information on the pricing specifically for the Talon encoder. I'm going to put Richard on the spot while he's here. So I'll come back to you on that. Some of the other features here is closed captioning. So we can support closed captionings. We can pull in that feed and then pass that through to Wowza. You can do professional audio as well. So embedded HDMI, SDI. You can pull in the stereo pair from the input, and you can do an additional unbalanced stereo pair from the front panel as well. So you can see here all the specs on this. I'll go ahead and post this PDF in there as well. Perfect. And what I've done is I have this Osprey Talon, which you can see here, the device itself. It can sit up or it can sit horizontally as well. It has an HDMI, it has an HDSDI. It has a network plug at the back that you can pull in the Ethernet and connect that to your local network. And what I've done is I've actually connected that here. And you can see I have a local IP address that I'm running on my local network. And it's a very simple. You can set up a static IP. You can see we have a static IP one here as an option for a Mac network, but I've chosen to use DHCP because I have a router here where I just wanted to assign the IP address, and this is that IP address that it's assigned through DHCP. Here you can go ahead and give some device information. You can set the name and password. You can reboot it, update the firmware. And then here's that operation mode where I can choose between the lecture capture mode or the MBR mode in there. And Jan's asking a question, is the 2x2 lecture capture mode actually two separate streams? If so, how will you keep them in sync on the viewer side? And that's actually a very, very good question. And I wasn't planning to show that lecture capture mode in the demo today. And to be honest, I have not tried it myself. But it's a good point of how to sync it. There is a way that you can send I'd have to check to see if there's a way that you can send metadata across and be able to use that, or time code, and then be able to use our transcoder at Wowza level to be able to sync those together. So that is actually a great question. With Wowza, there's a couple of workflows for that. You could send us two separate streams, and we could encode those and transcode those separately, send it to a player, and have two completely different video streams inside of the player. This is something that actually one of our customer does. CERN, the nuclear research facility in Geneva, is one of our customers that actually uses Osprey encoders. And what they do is they choose to actually have two separate streams, one for the talking head or the video of the person and one for the slides, because the player then, which they also use JW Player, they give control to the end user on which player they want to have maxed out. So if you encode those in Wowza as one stream, then you don't, if you do a picture-in-picture, you don't give the end user the control to choose which one he wants to see large and which one he wants to see small. With the Osprey Talon, you have the option to process those separately and then enable the playback, the user playback, with two separate players. So Jan, I'll get you the information on that. And actually, I would be interested in trying this. I won't do it today in the live demo, but I will try it, and I will try that workflow and get back to you on that. So one of the things that I've done is you can see here I have a status, and this status you can see I have an HDMI input that's coming in at 1080p at 60 frames per second. And what I can do inside of here is I actually can control inside of the stream how I want to process this input and where I want to send this to. So I've added a stream 1. I can add multiple streams in here as well and turn them on and off as needed. But this stream 1 is where I've chosen to set up my connection to Wowza. So in here, you can see I have an auto start enabled. And this is, imagine if my internet goes down for any reason, I can set auto start. So when the internet comes back up to the encoder, it would reconnect automatically. Here I can choose between my HDMI, my HD SDI, or my composite feed. I've chosen an HDMI camera today. And of course, the aspect ratio of 16:9. And I'm just using a video feed that I'm actually feeding in through HDMI today as a simulated live feed for a TV. And you'll see kind of what that looks like here inside of the inside of my player at the end. And this is actually a live feed that I'll show you. The video bitrate, I've chosen to do this actually at 720p at a slightly lower bitrate because of my local internet bandwidth here. So that's 2 megabits per second. And here I have the option to actually divide the frame rate. So if I don't want to do it at 60 frames per second, I can divide that frame rate and do it at half that at 30 frames per second and deliver that in the stream. I can, of course, do my H.264 profile, choose between that, my GOP size, my number of B frames, deinterlacing, the delay, and of course enable audio for that stream. And then within the audio, once I do enable that, I can choose the settings in here. I can choose the audio either from my separate audio feed or from the audio that's coming through my HDMI, and same is true of HD SDI. And then the sample rate, all these kind of standard settings, and my bit rate. I've chosen 128 kilobit per second. It's kind of an average good bit rate. And I am pulling in a stereo feed that's going to be pushed into Wowza. So with all of that ready to go, all I need to do is actually choose my output format. So here I have the ability to choose between RTP and UDP, RTMP, or as you can see here, this is our Works with Wowza integration with our Wowza Cloud platform. So all I have to do is enter a very simple 6-digit connection code. So this 6-digit connection code I need to generate with the Wowza Streaming Cloud service. And what I've already done is I've already gone ahead and done this all. I've configured a channel, but I am going to show you from start to finish what this looks like. But this is the end product. Here's that 2 megabit per second stream. Here it is coming in at the frame rate that I've selected. And you can see this is the actual playback that's happening. And what I'm going to do is actually copy this and paste this in the chat window so you guys can actually see the playback on your end. I'm doing this through GoToWebinar today, so the actual resolution or the frame rate between GoToWebinar is not very good. It's usually 3 or 5 frames per second. So it might look not very smooth. So I've shared this player so you guys can actually see for yourselves the quality of the feed. And this is a 720p feed that I'm actually pulling in and simulating a live feed from this of a news service. And you'll notice in here that if I click on quality, here I can see all of the different quality settings that are enabled. And you can see, of course, that this is live. I have closed captioning as an option, and all of these settings available in here. So now that we've seen kind of what the end product is like, let's start from start to finish. How do we set up this service from the beginning? With Wowza Streaming Cloud, you can go to cloud.wowza.com or just wowza.com and sign up for a free trial of Wowza Streaming Cloud. We give you a 30-day free trial that you can actually get up and running with everything that I'm showing today. So with this, I can actually come to my home screen. I can see here information on my account, and here where it says live streams, there's a drop down where I can choose to add a new live stream. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Here you can see I have 5 easy steps to set this up. And what I'm going to do is actually call this Wowza TV. And I can choose the different regions that are available within, and this is where my origin server is going to reside in these data centers with our cloud vendors. So Wowza Streaming Cloud is built on top of both Amazon and Google, and you can choose between those different services. You can see here the different data centers, the regions that are available around the world with those 2 cloud vendors. I'm based in Spain right now, so I'm probably going to choose, I want to choose one that's relatively close to me. This could be Belgium, Germany, or Ireland. Germany and Ireland are actually Amazon data centers, and we have the support in those data centers for up to 4K. With Belgium, I'm going to choose this one because it gives me a couple of options here. There is a pass-through stream and a 24/7 stream. The 24/7 billing is great for a TV service that's looking to keep their TV channel up and running 24/7. Google has a great sustained use discount that the longer you use one of their machine images, the cheaper it gets. So with Wowza Streaming Cloud, we've built the option for 24/7 on top of Google because it's a flat fee of $500 a month to have that virtual machine up and running. So it's a great option. The longer you use it, the cheaper it gets. And we've been able to pass that savings on to you with a flat fee of $500 a month. The only additional cost beyond that is the amount of bandwidth that you use, the amount of users that end up viewing that feed on the CDN, on Akamai, which we use as our CDN. And we're going to talk about Wowza Streaming Engine here in a bit. And Richard did get back to me. He said that 2,995 euros is the MSRP, the end user price. But we do have that reseller bundle available. So, and he's also mentioned that we have for universities, government, and corporate customers that have a certified supplier that they wish to use, they can also take advantage of that bundle. So that bundle pricing that we have to the end of September is going to give you 20% off, and I'll mention that here at the end of the webinar. Thanks, Richard. So what I'm going to do is select the Belgium region, and I'm going to click on Next. And here I have all of the different encoder options and camera options that are part of our Works with Wowza partner program. I have an option in here to choose Wowza Streaming Engine, which we're going to do here in just a little bit. This is the option when I want to use my own Wowza server that I'm running myself and push to Wowza Streaming Cloud just as a CDN. I also have our mobile encoder. I have all these other encoders. But what I'm going to do today is actually choose Osprey Video. Here I have the ability to enable adaptive bitrate streaming, which is our default and what we recommend. Additional option is a pass-through stream. And what a pass-through stream enables you to do is just send one encoding and we just pass it through to the end user. What we end up doing in that instance is we don't transcode. All we do is you send us a 1080p or a 720p stream and we pass it on to the end user. So with that, the problem with that is that doesn't enable adaptive bitrate, right? So for that, we always recommend do adaptive bitrate because it enables you to do it. With pass-through, it is more affordable because we're running, we don't need a more robust instance virtual machine that transcodes. So it is more affordable, but with adaptive bitrate, it's what we truly recommend to enable true adaptive bitrate delivery to the end user. We also have the ability to do Apple HLS. We can even do HTTPS streaming over Apple HLS. And this is all using the Akamai CDN that we do with the Wowza Streaming Cloud service. And I can do Apple HLS or Adobe HDS. And we're going to have Dash here in the very near future. So I'm going to enable this because then I can choose between these inside of the player to deliver that to my end user. And that enables kind of more functionality. For today's demo, I'm just doing a 720p feed in my stream, as we saw when I was doing the configuration. I could select up to 4K. For the Osprey encoder, it currently only supports 1080p, so it's not available here as an option. Some encoders that we have or cameras that we have do support up to 4K. 1080p, if I choose that, you can see that it will create 6 bitrate renditions. But for today's demo, I'm just going to do 720p, which creates only 5. I can record this live stream to an MP4 in a cloud service. And then if I'm actually enabling closed captions through the Osprey encoder, this is where I can choose that. And I'm not going to do that for today's demo, but I'm not going to record either. But these are options available here in this step. The other step here is playback. So we actually will create a free player for you that you can embed inside of your own website. So in here, you can configure the width of this player. You can configure a countdown clock if it's for only a live event. If you're truly doing a live TV streaming service, you're probably not going to do a countdown clock because you're going to have it up and running 24 hours a day. Here you can choose a poster image and a logo. What that looks like, if I kind of pause this and refresh, here is the poster image that I created in here. And then here is the logo that I enabled inside of the player. So that's just an option of kind of what's involved there with these steps. And I can position the logo wherever I want. And you can also turn all that off if you want. And then the final thing is to create a hosted page. This hosted page is extremely simple, like you can see here. This is if you don't have a website. If you're a university, let's say, and you don't have a public website, this will be a very simple page that you can put on here that will enable you to deliver this to your end customers. I'm going to go ahead and skip this step for now. And then finally, I'm going to click on Finish. And when I do this, it's now going to prepare this live channel, and it's also generated a connection code. This connection code, I'm going to just copy that, and this is what I'm going to paste inside of my Osprey encoder. I'm going to click on Start Stream. When I do this, this is when you'll start accruing usage on Wowza Streaming Cloud. I'll click on Start, and this is now going to spin up this virtual machine on the Google network. And while it's doing this, I'm going to go ahead and connect my Osprey encoder to this particular virtual machine on Wowza Streaming Cloud. So I'm going to switch back over here. I'm going to put in my connection code. You can see I just pasted that, and I'm going to authorize. And what happens now is we've worked with the engineers at Osprey to create an API connection between the Osprey encoder and Wowza Streaming Cloud. So behind the scenes, you can see it's gone to the Wowza Streaming Cloud service, it's done an API call, and it's returned with an authentication. And now those are connected. And it's told me that this is actually connected to my Wowza TV channel. This is the name of the channel that I connected to, also through that API integration. The great thing about this is now, if I actually refresh this, you'll see that this connection code has been used, and I can't reuse it. So you can see here, it's telling me your connection code has been used. You can generate a new one, but this creates a level of security that nobody else can connect to this TV channel that you've created with Wowza Streaming Cloud. So there's definitely a benefit to having that connection with the Osprey encoder. It's made it extremely easy, and it's also added that level of security. So you can see I've made that connection. And I also have the option here, if I chose to do a generic RTMP stream, I can choose this and be able to enter this with my own encoder. What we've done behind the scenes is we've generated this embed code because we chose to create a player, and we've generated these individual Akamai URLs that you can use inside of your own player, or you can use it with the player that we generate for you. The great thing about this is if I actually look at my transcoder settings here, is I'm actually going to generate different encoding settings in here. If I look at my advanced menu, and I go into transcoders, and I pull up this transcoder that we've generated for Wowza Streaming Cloud, here it gives me all of the different settings that are being done, and this all gets done automatically. This makes it very easy for a university, a local regional, where you maybe don't have the knowledge of how to manage your own TV streaming service. This is taken care of for you, and we've already done the heavy lifting with creating this template to transcode. So here you can see we've done a pass-through stream. This is the high-level stream, the 720p stream. We're passing through the video and the audio, but we're also transcoding to a 1.6 megabit stream for the 480p. We're doing a 1 megabit per second stream for the 360p rendition, and so on and so forth. So we've done all of that in here, and then we're able to grab all of these adaptive bitrate streams and deliver that over Apple HLS and Adobe HDS over the Akamai network. So if I look at my outputs and targets, this is what's happened. We provisioned these Akamai endpoints inside of the Akamai network to push these different renditions. Here's that 480p stream at 1.6 megabit per second. And then what makes Wowza Streaming Cloud different than any other live TV streaming platform that's out there is you can come in here and you can change the transcoder setup, everything. You can do some very advanced configurations. If you don't know what this is all about, you can just leave it, and that's fine. But you can come in here and change all of these different configurations if you choose to. If I come in here and I want to configure my video bitrate for this particular one, I can. So this is all extremely powerful. I can also do geo-blocking. If I have the rights with my content to only deliver to Spain or to the UK or to France or wherever, I can now geo-block this inside of the Akamai endpoints. So I want to allow streaming only for, since I'm in Spain, let's choose Spain here. And what this will do, I can now add this. This will have an API integration with Akamai to tell Akamai, don't deliver this stream outside of Spain IP addresses. And this is very great because if I actually buy content from a service and I only have the rights to deliver that inside of Spain, I can do my due diligence and enable this in here. And because Akamai, being the world's largest CDN, has all of these endpoints inside of Spain and all these different ISPs and networks, they have all of the control over the IP ranges for the ISPs that are available in that country. And you can see here the level of depth and security that's available in here. Another thing that we have available is this authorization, and this is the ability to protect your stream. You can enable token authorization, and this is a feature that's available in multi-million-dollar live TV streaming services, but is available to you inside of Wowza Streaming Cloud. If I want to add a level of security, I can now create a token that I can enable inside of my playback, inside of JW Player, or inside of the player that I have available with Wowza Streaming Cloud to only enable playback inside of that player itself. This allows me to protect my content and add that level of authorization. So another extremely good part of creating a live TV streaming service. So I'm going to see, I have a couple of questions here. Jan's asking a question about Facebook Live. So that's actually a great question. So while I'm in the advanced menu here, let me show you how to push this to Facebook Live. So let's say I am a regional TV station or even a university TV. I want to get my TV station out to as many places as possible. I own the content. I want to deliver this to other places. One thing that we've enabled is in here in the advanced menu for my transcoder, I have outputs and targets. In this outputs and targets, I'm going to add a new stream target, and here you can see all the different places I can push this to. I can push this to a RTMP target, to YouTube Live. I can even push this to Facebook Live. So if I create a new Facebook Live target, in here, I can now enable Facebook. I can log in with my Facebook account. If I have a university Facebook page, I can now log in. I can push this to my Facebook Live TV page. For my particular university or my local TV station. One thing I will mention is part of the EULA with Facebook Live is they do say that you can't push it to two places at once. You're supposed to only, if you use Wowza Streaming Cloud, you're supposed to only push it to Facebook Live. So that's one thing I do want to mention. But it does give you the functionality inside of Wowza Streaming Cloud to add this component. So, social media being as large as it is, a lot of TV stations, they want to have, a white labeled player on their own site. They want to control the branding. Wowza Streaming Clouds allows you to do that. But then you can also push to your YouTube Live channel. If you want to get your TV station out there and get more eyeballs and get more views, if you're in a small community like I am here in Spain, our local TV station, they want to get the message out to as many people as possible, right? There may be people in other countries who want to see their local TV station, and you can do that here. You can push it to YouTube Live, you can push it to Facebook Live and enable that. So Alexander asked a question here about encryption. So with encryption, like I mentioned, when I was going through the steps, you have the ability to do HTTPS over the Akamai network. So you can create a level of encryption inside of that. So there are options, and we have information on our support forum on how to do that. And let's see here, targeted ad insertion. So this is a great thing. So we do support the conversion of metadata and markers inside of streams, and we can convert that to, let's say, ID3 tags inside of an Apple HLS stream. So with something like that, that enables you, those ID3 tags, we can send to a player, and then the player does player-side ad insertion with, let's say, an ad service that you've bought or a part of, right? So with an ad service, I actually did a webinar with JW Player a couple of months ago, and I can find that. We actually walked through all the steps of how to enable that ad insertion level with Wowza and with JW Player. So that's something that you can definitely do with those two products. So I can definitely find that out for you, Akram, and send you information on it. So I think I've walked through pretty well how to do this. You can see with my particular live stream, with Wowza Streaming Cloud, I have the ability to monitor here. So if I go into this live feed that I have, I can monitor my live feed, all of the information, and this gives me a snapshot of what's going on. If I once again come back to my page, you can see here the playback of this. One thing that I want to show is this is the player that comes with Wowza. This is the FreeCaster player, and it does have adaptive bitrate. It's great if you don't want to pay for a player. It's a free player that's available. But if you want a more robust player, there is an option in here. You can grab these HLS and HDS URLs that are Akamai URLs, and then you can go to your JW Player account and enable this. So my JW Player account, we work very closely with them. They're one of our Works with Wowza partners. If I paste this URL, now I can grab all of the adaptive bitrate streams, embed this inside of my own player. And what I've done here is I'm going to go ahead and change my player I have here. I have a player that we actually use on our own Wowza site, this Wowza 3.0 player. I'm going to select that, and this is using the JW Player 7. And if I play this back now, and actually I'll show you the preview page. JW Player has the ability to create, you can create poster images and logos and all that as well. But I'm going to click play, and now you can see that exact same stream in a separate player. And I'm going to put this inside of the chat window too. So now you can use JW Player, but it's pulling the content from Akamai and from the Wowza Streaming Cloud. If I look here, here's my HD. Here are all the adaptive bitrate renditions that are being generated from Wowza Streaming Cloud and being delivered to Akamai. By the same token, you'll notice here this Chromecast button. If I click on this Chromecast, it's allowing me to cast. I have a Chromecast in my living room. That's what salon means in Spanish. I can now cast this to my Chromecast that's connected to my TV. And now I've enabled OTT playback. And you can see here, this is now casting to my Chromecast device, and now I can use this to do it. So very easily, I can now enable OTT functionality in my TV streaming service. In fact, we have an article on how to do this for Roku. Roku is not as big here in Europe, but it is extremely big in the US and in Asia as well. And I feel like Roku will get bigger here in Europe. In fact, I met ANGA in Cologne. It's a big broadcast conference. I met the business development manager for Roku, and they're doing a lot more to try to bring Roku to Europe. And it's a great price point. It's a very good device. JW Player has support for that, as does Wowza. So it's a great way to kind of enable functionality in here. And you can see I'm playing this back in Chrome. Chrome allows you, if I click here, it allows me to control my Chromecast device directly from my browser. So JW Player does a great job of implementing that very, very easily. And if I come in here, if I come into my video builder, I want to go into this a little bit just because I want to show you guys part of a live TV streaming service is not just the streaming media platform. It's not just the encoder, it's the playback as well and enabling playback across devices. So with my player, if I look here at my Wowza.com 3.0 player, you'll see here, this is where I can build it. They have this fantastic cloud-based builder. I can look at my player library URL. I can use this URL inside of my own website, or I can use their embed code to do it. You can see here I can design it. I can create all kinds of options. You'll notice under the casting tab here, if I select this, here's where I have Chromecast enabled. I have it enabled, and I've gone through and I've created my own app ID for that particular Chromecast. And I have an article, I believe I recorded a video tutorial on how to do this, how to enable your own Chromecast with JW Player and Wowza. So great way to do it. You can add your own start screen, end screen, and logo. If you guys have ever used Chromecast, you can see that. And you can see here the receiver URL that's been generated for this particular JW Player implementation. So, but I just wanted to throw that out there. That's a great way to kind of enable your own OTT service. So in here, I can very quickly now just disconnect from that and now play that back inside of my browser again. And the same is true of your mobile device. You can very easily do this on your mobile device and then cast that. So the next thing I want to show is, and I want to leave a bit of time for information as well. So Mayur is asking a question. It's a perfect segue. Is the process the same for Wowza Streaming Engine? And it somewhat. So with Wowza Streaming Engine, that's our media server software. I've got a instance of Wowza Streaming Engine running up in the cloud. So here, let me refresh this. It's still logged in, good. So with this, I actually want to push a stream to my own Wowza Streaming Engine instance. I have this running on Amazon Web Services. It's one of our cloud vendors. You could also run this in your own data center. So if you're a local TV station that has enough internet bandwidth, you want to host your own server and do that, that's great. The benefit to this too is that you can run multiple live streams at the same time. With Wowza Streaming Cloud, you can, but you pay for every individual live stream. You have an individual dedicated instance. So if you're running multiple live streams, you might want to run that on your own server running Wowza Streaming Engine and then push that to Wowza Streaming Cloud. So what I want to do here is I'm coming into my live application. I have a bunch of applications on this particular server. Here I have my live application. If I look at my live sources, we're in the process of working with the Osprey engineers and our engineering team to create a button in here for Wowza, for Osprey as well. So that should be coming very soon. But what I can do is I can use this information to send a generic push to Wowza Streaming Engine. So in here, if I go back into my Osprey Talon, I'm going to go ahead and change this, and I'm going to change this. I'm going to move this over to an RTMP output format. So in here now, I can choose the information, and here I have a domain name attached to this, but I could also use my IP address. So I have my IP address here of my Wowza Streaming Engine instance, and then we can start this service and push this into Wowza Streaming Engine. So now if I go ahead and look at my incoming streams in here, and see the playback inside of my Wowza Streaming Engine instance. So here we have a live feed coming in. What we can now do in Wowza is we can actually transcode this to multiple different resolutions using our transrate template. It's a little bit more manual inside of Wowza Streaming Engine. We have to enable this. We have to turn on transcoding for it and enable all of our different feeds. But what we can do then is we can then grab all of these and push this as a stream target to Wowza Streaming Cloud. So if I go to my stream targets here, I can now add a new stream target and push this there. And you can see I have one here, but the way I would set this up is if I go into my Wowza Streaming Cloud service again, I'm going to add a new live stream, and I'm going to push this in here. And I'm going to call this Wowza CDN. I can select my region in that region. So if I click Next, here is I'm going to select Wowza Streaming Engine, and you can see here, do you want to stream directly to Wowza Streaming Cloud CDN? I'm going to say yes. If I select no, what's going to happen is it is going to transcode that again and set up an additional virtual machine, which is not what I want. What I want to do is I want to transcode it locally with my own media server with Wowza Streaming Engine, and I want to send the adaptive bitrate renditions to Wowza. So I can do that. I can enable closed captions, and I can go through all of the steps needed to do this again. So if I come in here, I'm going to just skip through these really quick. I'm going to click on Finish, and it's going to generate a connection code very similar to what we saw earlier. You'll notice here that this is slightly different. It's not going to show me a picture of my feed. It's just going to send a direct stream directly to the CDN. So I'm going to grab this connection code. I'm going to come back into my Wowza instance, and in here in Stream Targets, I'm going to add a new one. And I'm going to push this to Wowza Streaming Cloud. Right here, I'm going to click on Next. I'm going to enter the connection code. And then here is where I can choose the name of my local stream name. So I've selected that. I'm going to select the server, click on Finish. And you'll notice now that when I come back in here to Stream Targets, it's now active. Right away, it's connected to that. And just like that, it's connected to Wowza Streaming Cloud. So what ends up happening now is I'm pulling in from my encoder, I'm transcoding on my own Wowza Streaming Engine instance to as many adaptive bitrate renditions as I want, and then I'm pushing it directly into the Akamai white label CDN that we have running with Wowza Streaming Cloud. So now you don't have users connect to your server that's transcoding because that server may only be able to support 300, 500, 1,000 users, depending on your network throughput. Now I can push that to my CDN and scale that with the Wowza CDN. This enables me to use Akamai, pay for the bandwidth that I use on a per user basis. So a very easy way to integrate the Wowza Streaming Engine with Wowza Streaming Cloud CDN and push this out. So now if I return to Wowza Streaming Cloud, I look at my hosted page for this, I'll be able to see this stream coming in and being scaled across. And what I'll show you real quick is this is generating this Akamai URL. So just like before, I can grab this Apple HLS URL and I can paste that inside of my own JW player and use that. I went through quite a few different steps, a few different processes, depending on what flow you want for your live TV streaming service. I think one thing that's definitely differentiators between Wowza Streaming Engine and Wowza Streaming Cloud is with Wowza Streaming Engine, of course, it's a media server that we've had for over 10 years. So we have very advanced functionality in there that we still don't have with Wowza Streaming Cloud. An example of that is we can do DVR inside of here. So with DVR, we have this enabled in this particular channel. If I show you what this looks like, let me pull up this particular sample stream. In test players, I can show you exactly what this looks like. If I look at my Adobe HDS player here, I'm going to start this, and you'll notice that here I have the live feed, and then it gives me 2 hours of content that I can now see. So I can live rewind, and this is all enabled with Wowza Streaming Engine. The other thing that we can do as well, for those of you who maybe do have content that you need to protect, with Wowza Streaming Engine, we have very extensive DRM or digital rights management support. So in here, we can go into DRM and we can enable that for a lot of very popular DRM technologies too. Something that we still don't have in Wowza Streaming Cloud, but we're hoping to in the future as well. So I know that's a lot of information. One of the things I definitely want to point out is the bundle that we're currently offering. And I'll go ahead and post this inside of the chat window so you guys can view this. This bundle will actually give you 20% off of the MSRP price when buying the Osprey Talon encoder with Wowza Streaming Engine. And that is kind of a ridiculous price point when it comes to buying these products together. The Talon encoder, I've been using that here now for the last couple of weeks. It's extremely robust encoder. The ability to do lecture capture and do two encodings at the same time really puts it in a price in a point above a lot of other encoders in the same price point. And it's also available through our worldwide distributors and reseller partners. So let me zoom in here, and you can see here in Europe, we definitely have ambient media. So ambient media in other countries, we have GDI in USA and Canada. We've got the XSN Group in Latin America and Mexico, EasyTech in China and Hong Kong, CCDN, and then Corsair as well in Australia and New Zealand. So those are all options if you guys are coming in from around the world, you can contact them. And this is only running through the end of September. Hopefully I gave you guys enough to go out and try this out for yourselves and try creating your own live TV streaming service. I think the benefit of a hardware encoder like the Talon is, if you guys have ever run software encoders, I use Wirecast for a lot of my demos, and it's a great product, but to run it more than, several hours is just not a good idea because you're usually running it on hardware that needs to be up and running forever, like a laptop or a server or whatever. All the software encoders I've ever used, everything from FMLE, Flash Media Live Encoder, to XSplit, to vMix, to Wirecast, they're fantastic products, but to run it in a 24/7 environment, you need a piece of hardware that is built for it. And I feel like the Talon's a great fit. And I think with the price point it's at, it makes it affordable. This bundle price gets you into that price point for infinitely less than what you would see a broadcaster doing it. So I think that's definitely a great solution for end users.